Good afternoon and good evening. Happy Wednesday, my winners and goal getters. This is another edition of the Getting the Win show. I'm your host, Melissa T, the procrastination bully. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you. Our mission with this show is to turn procrastinating authors into producers. Basically, I'm helping women who have navigated a trauma or transition find healing through writing their book and telling their story. So, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. For my folks that are day ones, that are OGs, that have always been here, thank you so much for being here. I always appreciate you. You guys know that. So, today, I wanted to tackle a topic that we really need to touch on that I think is really important, which is the cost of inaction. Okay. The cost of inaction. I want to talk about that. And this hails back to the procrastination bully part, right? Like always, the procrastination bully is always present. You won't get away from her. But yeah, I wanted to cover the cost of inaction today to help you if this is something you're struggling with. Maybe you have doubts about whether or not you should go forward in finishing your book if you started it, or go forward in starting your book if you're contemplating it, if you've always wanted to write one. Tonight, this episode is for you. I want to make sure to help you move over that hump, to move the needle, to get your book done. All right, so I'm going to start with this very important thought. Your inaction is injuring you. Okay? If you've been contemplating writing your book, maybe perhaps because you're super busy, whether you're a mom, a wife, you're juggling a 9 to 5 and a side hustle, a business, that could be your story. That has become a norm in recent years for many, many people. So if that's something that you're struggling with and you're like, I don't have time to do another thing, I don't have time to add anything else to my schedule. When it comes to your book, though, the message that's on your heart, the thing that you've been inspired to write, the truth is you can't afford not to. And the reason you can't afford not to is because your inaction is indeed injuring you. Let me go over the cost of inaction, starting with the physical elements. Because when I say injuring, you might be thinking physical. And yes, procrastination has some physical repercussions. So let me talk about one of them. One of those costs is less sleep. Statistics have shown that folks who struggle with procrastination, and in this case, if you're procrastinating on the message that is within you, that is meant to be published out to the world, you're likely losing sleep over that. Because the truth is, when we're inspired, we lose sleep anyway because we're energized. We want to do it. We want to make it, right? We want to produce the thing so that it is out in the world. So the fact that it's not out yet, that fuel is still in there, just revving, waiting for you to release it. And then when it's not stored as fuel, it will sometimes be translated or transformed into depression or stress or anxiety. A global study showed that 20 to 25% of people experience increased stress, anxiety, and depression from their procrastination. And if this is something that is on your heart, that you know has to be out in the world, this is a trauma that you've experienced and you want to explain to the world how you navigated through it and found healing, if that fuel stays in you, it's going to turn into this. It's going to affect your mental health eventually. So, my question is your pause truly worth dealing with anxiety or depression or stress or lack of sleep? Now, all of these will then lead to some other physiological consequences, like increased blood pressure, struggles with breathing. Believe it or not, that's a thing. I'm going to get to that in a second. Is keeping your message within you worth this level of discomfort? Is this discomfort lesser or greater than the discomfort you feel about the possibility of getting your message out there? Perhaps the biggest question you have is, what if it doesn't go well? What if the book doesn't blow up? What if I fail? What if nobody cares about my message? So I'll present that question or those series of questions with what's on your screen before you. Does the discomfort of the possibility of your book failing outweigh the discomfort that will occur to you if you stay where you are and choose not to take action? The possibility of your book failing is further off into the future. This stuff can be happening right now or in the very near future. Let me go into another cost of inaction. Because if you're the person I'm talking to, someone who has navigated a major transition or a major trauma, and want to talk about that in your book, you want to share that as your story, the cost of inaction is staying broken. And when I say staying broken, yes, you've navigated the transition. Yes, you've navigated the trauma. I say stay broken in that part of your further growth, part of your further transformation is the process of actually sharing your story. Writing your book is actually part of your continued growth. It's part of your trajectory in life. It's something that you've been called to do because the idea for the book was placed in you in the first place. So if you start one part of the process and don't finish, you don't get to reap the benefits that come with finishing. Okay? As you can see there, it says unprocessed trauma and lingering pain. Yes, you've gone through the transition. Yes, you've gone through the trauma. But there's some stuff that's going to remain in you if you don't release it. There's a book out there called The Body Keeps the Score. And then there's another book called It Didn't Start With You, which has to do with the body and how the body holds in trauma. Okay? So this is another cost of inaction. Here's another one that you may or may not know about. But another cost of inaction concerning the book that's within you, concerning whatever your luxury item is that you're procrastinating on, leaving money on the table. Studies here in the US show that approximately $10,000 to $15,000 a year is being left on the table as a result of procrastination. Now, in the tangible sense, that is very possible for you in terms of the book that you have not written. It's perfectly possible for your book to go on to become a bestseller. And there's a strategy for that. That's money that's being left on the table because the book isn't written yet. Okay? There's impact that is not being made because the book isn't written yet. This is the cost of inaction. There are people who need to heal from the sound of your voice that can't because they haven't heard it yet. There's a part of you that cannot be healed until that book is finished. There are people in your family, whether they know it or not, that won't be healed until your book is written and published and out in the world. Because the very process of you writing and publishing your book could inspire them. The story that you share in terms of healing yourself is a story they're not hearing. So they don't get the healing that is meant for them to get because you haven't done the thing yet. So here's the thing. If your main concern is, I don't have time for yet another thing, I can assure you from experience that you can start writing your book in as little as 10 minutes a day. You can carve out 10 minutes. You can carve out 10 minutes. As I mentioned in previous episodes, the average person speaks 150 words a minute. So 10 minutes is 1,500 words. 1,500 words a day over the course of 30 days. You have a book by the end of a month. Writing a book doesn't have to take nearly as long as you think. I was just on a recent call. I'm part of the Yo You Mastermind with Dr. Eric Thomas and the entire ETA crew. And Brandon Burns, who's one of the coaches, he just recently finished his book. It's not published yet. He showed us a sort of galley copy, like a preview copy. He said he finished it in 1 month. And mind you, he's worked with the likes of Rory Vaden, so he already knows how to turn a book into a bestseller. So I already know the trajectory of that book. His motto is every day means every day. He's a former gymnast from the University of Michigan, and he's been training every single day ever since being a gymnast on that team. He was eventually cut, but he's been training and maintaining that same gymnastics physique every single day since he was cut from the team. And if you see him now, dude's a beefcake, man. Like every day means every day. But bringing it back to writing your book and having the time, if you carve out 10 minutes a day, you'll be surprised at what you can accomplish. Okay? If your main hangup is it's too complicated, I don't know where to start, I got you. I will point you to the description below, and I will have the link for every single step in my framework to get you started in the process of writing your book if you haven't started yet, or even if you're mid-process. And perhaps my framework can help you refine what you've already started. You'll see all the links there so you can check it out and refine your process to move the needle and finish what you started. Okay? If your concern is, what if it fails? Here's my question in response to that. What does failing look like for you? What does failing look like for you? Is your description of success becoming a bestseller? You want your book to become a bestseller? Because in that case, you would have to traditionally publish your book for that. In terms of the New York Times bestseller list, the Wall Street Journal list, those. You can become an Amazon bestseller for sure without the need for traditional publishing. There are ways to do that. So what does success look like for you? What does failure look like for you? Define that clearly. And once you do define it, we can create a counter strategy for that. If your concern is becoming a New York Times bestseller, that's a matter of shifting your strategy. That's a matter of developing an audience for your book first, a large enough audience that can then guarantee you 10,000 books sold within the first week of your book's launch. That's a strategy issue. That can be done. That can be done. If failure for you is defined as no one taking your book seriously, that's a messaging thing, which can also be corrected or upgraded or improved before you launch a book. Because the goal for any book launch is to strengthen the messaging long before the book is ever available for sale. So you'd want to be working on that beforehand anyway. So you'll have time to do that if your book isn't complete yet. And you're definitely in good hands if you haven't started writing yet. So if that's the definition, there's hope for you. You don't have to fail. Your book doesn't have to fail if that's your definition. If the reason for your inaction is, well, I'm not going to write it because who am I to say anything? Who am I to tell my story? Who am I to insert question here? The answer is you are you. You are someone who has experienced your transition, your trauma, the specific way that you experienced it. Nobody can replicate you. Nobody can replicate the lessons you learned because you're going to learn them in a way that's slightly different from anyone else. The general principle would be the same. Success always leaves clues, right? There are universal principles that always apply, but the nuances to those principles, that's going to be specific to you because you experienced your life the specific way that you experienced it. Even twins experience life differently. So, who are you to tell your story? You are a person who experienced the story exactly the way you experienced it. You are the person that has this specific lesson based on what you learned, what your previous traumas are, and the way those previous traumas inform your experience. It's going to come across differently than anybody else. And the voice you use to express your story, your lessons, will be different from anyone else because we all have different voices, not only literally in terms of our tone, our timbre, our depth, our height, our level of energy, not only that, but in terms of our tone. Some of us are snarky, snarky and sarcastic. Some of us are goofy. Some of us are, subtly humorous. Some of us are droll, like deadpan. We all have our different tones. And each of our different tones, each of our different voices will resonate with different people. So between your tone, the literal timbre of your voice, and your message, the actual nuance of your trauma and your lessons, that's going to resonate with different people. You've likely heard the phrase, your vibe attracts your tribe. And you'll be missing out on that tribe as a cost of inaction. If you're someone that struggles with loneliness, because believe it or not, loneliness is also a side effect of procrastination. If you struggle with loneliness and still choose not to put this book out there, not to get this message out to the world, that loneliness will continue. It will remain. Because when you put that book out there, you will have the opportunity to attract the people not only who resonate with you, but the people who are maybe one or two chapters ahead of you that can say, hey, I was there too. Here's what I learned. Here's what I figured out. Have you explored this? Did you know about this? And you can learn something new yourself. So that's another cost of inaction, is loneliness, or the absence of the tribe that you could have as a result of sharing your story. And here's the one, I'll be honest with you. Here is the cost of inaction that scares even me, which is why I no longer mute my voice. I use my breath now. Here's a major cost of inaction. The cycle and silence continues. Many of the greatest movements that we know of, whether you're here in the US or wherever you are in the world, many of the greatest movements that you know of, that I know of, started from someone who experienced something terrible and felt the need to shout it from the rooftops, to raise awareness about it so action could be taken. Not only from the person making the noise, but for others to be made aware of it and move the needle. So we have a lot of these different awareness months for our non-traditional calendar. If you go back a few episodes, I talked about that in the book marketing episode, the messaging pillar. There are non-traditional months or holidays, if you will, here in the US. If you're across the world, you've likely seen it on social media, on YouTube, things like that. There's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. There's Mental Health Awareness Month. Obviously, there are the cultural months, right? Black History Month, Indigenous Peoples Awareness Month, Haitian American Awareness Month, Caribbean American History Month, Haitian American History Month, Caribbean American History Month, all of these things. But you have these different movements. There's Prostate Cancer Awareness Month, which I believe doubles with Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Both of those are in October. But these are different movements based on people who experienced something painful or difficult and chose to raise the alarm about it. And in raising the alarm, folks galvanized and decided to take action. Folks started raising money. Research went up. And with increased research, we came up with increased solutions. Months like Domestic Violence Awareness Month or Mental Health Awareness Month, those things are highly important because without the awareness of what's going on, people continue to suffer silently. They don't get the help they need. And worst case scenario, they pass away, which means whatever was within them passes with them. Don't let that be you. If you've gone through a trauma and transition and you know within you that you should write a book, or you've been told by friends and family, you should write a book about that. Like, obviously you've gone through this thing. I've seen you do your work. You're looking great now. Like you're doing so much better. You should write a book about that. If you feel that inkling in your heart, like, you know what? I probably should. Even the probably is enough of a cause for you to take action. And all you need is the right who to guide you. And I am somebody that is that who. I'm an 8-time self-published author. I can walk you through the process. And like I said in the description, I'll put the links to the entire process so that you can see that it is much simpler than you think and takes far less time than you think. And it costs far less than you think. It costs far less than you think. It's not as complicated. Okay? So let's make sure to not stay stuck here. Okay? Don't continue in the perpetual cycle of being overly busy. Because one solution in terms of being overly busy is expressing greater boundaries to the people you love and to the people you work with. If you're somebody that, if you're honest, you're a recovering people pleaser and you say yes to everybody, the first way to cut the overwhelm is to start expressing boundaries, speaking up for yourself. Like, you know what? Nah, I'm not going to be able to, like, I ain't got it. I don't have the bandwidth. My plate is full. These are all different ways of saying no. I don't have the bandwidth. My plate is full. Get back to me like insert whatever time frame you want. Get back to me in 90 days. But come back to me in 6 months and we'll talk about it. Whatever the time frame is, come back to me in 1 month, whatever the case may be. But expressing a boundary can help you reduce that overwhelm. Revisiting your schedule, going through with a red pen, and based on priorities, figure out what you no longer need to be doing. Even in terms of your leisurely time, if you're somebody that's big on your self-care just as a form of escape, even managing that escape, that can make a difference too. But having those key conversations can make a difference, not only in making your schedule more streamlined and less overwhelming, but it can also reduce your stress levels. The less stress you have, the less need you'll have to escape. The less time you're using to escape, the more productive you can be in writing your book or in getting that luxury item done, whatever that luxury item is. Okay? So I wanted to go over the cost of inaction. I'll transition into what's possible for you in a moment. But let me jump over to the chat real quick. Shout out to Sabrina. Thank you so much for tuning in and leaving your comment. I love that you're saying, yes, I know that one well. I know. And then she said, I know that one all too well. I get you. She mentions, she's part of a mastermind. It inspired her to complete her book. Absolutely. And for the record, Sabrina is somebody that's in our community, in our goal getter community. We've been doing the work sessions, and it's been a difference maker for her. So shout out to Sabrina for taking action. Shout out to Miss Rosalie, always tuning in. Yes, we all have different voices. We all do. And every voice matters. Every voice matters. Shout out to Miss Sonia Segre. Thank you for your comment as well. Thanks for your insight each week on life. Thank you. I appreciate you. Shout out to Mr. Lamasley Thomas. He says, yes, I am learning. Absolutely. And if you're somebody who's like Lamasley, like this is somebody who is more of an introvert. Like he shares his wisdom with the people he knows, people that he's comfortable with, that he feels safe with sharing that with. But he's wise. And in his own way, he's a leader because he has a unique voice and his voice matters. And people listen to it. So if you're someone that's like that as well, perhaps you're an introvert, you're wondering who's going to listen to me, your voice matters. Okay? Your voice matters. So here's what's possible for you if you choose to go forward and move the needle with your book. The first thing that's possible for you is healing. One of the things I always share on this show is that the body needs words to heal. So in writing the words of your book, whether you voice record them or type them or both, in doing so, you heal your body because you release what needs to be said, what needs to be expressed. And sometimes that expression is tears. Sometimes that expression is rage. Sometimes that expression is hyperventilating. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you do need to take time and intentionally breathe to regulate your nervous system. Sometimes you need to do something physical, whether that's walking, running, kickboxing if you need to do something more physical, any form of exercise. And the process of writing your story, the process of getting that trauma or that transition out of you will move you to express that thing physically. And that's okay. The priority is to get the thing out of you, though. Get the story out of you so that it is on paper, so that it is out into the world. If you want to do it as an ebook, so that it is on screen. Earlier, I talked about one of the costs of inaction being struggle breathing. I learned this from my cousin, Jessica Ewing. Shout out to her. She's an herbalist. And something that she shared with me very recently when I was talking to her about her teas, she's a founder of a company called High Vibe Herbals. Look her up. She's amazing. The teas are amazing. But one of the things I shared with her is that in the 9 years when I was in the news industry, I struggled with expressing boundaries. And as a result, I ended up holding in a lot of my feelings, a lot of my emotions. And that led to increased stress. The chronic stress in my body manifested in one way as adult onset asthma. I developed adult onset asthma in 2022. Correction, 2019. I developed adult onset asthma in 2019, and I remember the date is September 22nd because that is my mom's birthday. It was a Sunday, and I was driving to Tampa with my colleague to cover a Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. It was a terrifying feeling, all of a sudden not being able to breathe properly, to going from breathing properly to gradually not being able to. Terrifying feeling. My throat didn't close or anything, but it felt as if I was breathing through a straw. Terrifying feeling. And the insight that my cousin Jessica shared with me is, the spiritual significance behind the development of asthma, Melissa? I said, no. What is that? She said, asthma is signified by unexpressed feelings. When you keep things on your chest, when you're not saying how you feel, when you're not using your words, people develop asthma as a result of that. It can manifest in that way. And I said, wow, you have got to be kidding me. Like, I had no idea like that connection would be a thing. Here's another connection she made for me. And this is connected to the other medical issue I developed as a result of holding in my words and of my loneliness, the isolation that I was experiencing. If you've watched the show, I shared my health journey. I had essentially a very sick womb until 2024 when I had my major surgery. And when I explained that to her, she said, here's the spiritual significance of that. When you experience health struggles in your womb, it's a sign that you're meant to create, because the womb is a space for creation, right? For women, it's childbirth. It's bringing forth life. It's bringing forth something from out of you. She said, because you were holding stuff back, you didn't have the chance to create. You didn't have the chance to collaborate. Because, of course, with the womb, unless your name is Mary, birth is not immaculate, right? Like, it takes one other person. There is collaboration there, right? So that's what she said. You're supposed to collaborate. You're supposed to create. And because you weren't doing that, all of that was trapped in you. And it manifested in illness. Again, I said, wow, you have got to be kidding me, because I'm somebody that's a creative. As I mentioned, 8-time self-published author. I'm a storyteller. I love words. I love music. I love movies. I have a bachelor's in film. So I am someone who is a creative for sure, for sure. And while there was a bit of creativity and collaboration in the news media work, it felt like work for me. It wasn't the fun and liberating and creative feeling that I would have in writing a book or writing a short story or writing a screenplay or writing a stage play, because I've done that as well. It wasn't the same feeling. So imagine that. Going back to the cost of inaction, sometimes that cost can be steep health consequences, because all of that bound up develops as stress, and chronic stress manifests into health issues. So even if you didn't resonate with the spiritual stuff, it's all right. The physical part, the part that is empirically proven by science, is chronic stress. The cost of inaction can manifest as chronic stress for you, which can then develop into health issues, steep health issues, if you've been inactive for a long period of time. So now let's transition into what's possible for you, which is healing. I talked about the body needs words to heal. Once you talk about the thing, not only are you going to feel better emotionally, but you'll also find healing from the people who have been through it. And this ties into the other possibility, which is actually connection first, before we get to growth. Connection. People who resonate with what you struggled with, who are maybe a few chapters behind you, you'll establish a connection with them. But then you'll also attract the people who are a few chapters ahead of you, as I mentioned before, that can say, look at this thing. I learned this, and that can help you. Have you considered this? And that can help you. Oh, you're working on that? Let me show you this thing that will take much less time. That works, but this is going to work better for you. That connection. And that can also lead to growth. Because when folks are pouring into you based on their experiences, whether they're a chapter behind you or a chapter ahead of you, you're being poured into so you can grow. You'll hear the questions that the folks that are a chapter behind you are asking. And if you don't know the answer, you'll learn it for yourself so you can better express it to them. As for the folks that are ahead of you, they'll pour into you what they've learned that you haven't been exposed to yet. And that'll make you better to pour into the people behind you, because you can say, oh, I heard about this thing. Try this. Growth. Les Brown says it this way: if you're not creating, you're disintegrating. If you're not growing, you're falling away. Growth is what we are perpetually meant to do, no matter what stage in life we are in. We are meant to grow, because here's the thing: unlike God, who exists outside of time, we are very much time bound. So if we're not growing, the cost of your inaction, the cost of our inaction, is going backwards by default. Even if you don't intend to, you will fall backwards simply by not moving, because time only perpetually moves forward. Let's not do that. Let us agree on this day, July 23rd, 2025. Let us make the decision. Let us cut off all other options except to go forward and grow. Let us decide to create. Let us decide to collaborate. So reach out to me and follow me on Instagram, Pinterest, and Threads at Getting the Win Show. Subscribe on YouTube at Getting the Win. Follow me on TikTok at Mel T Writes, so that any question you have concerning your book gets answered, so that we can move the needle and you can get started. Okay? Let's not perpetuate the inaction. Shout out to Sabrina. She agrees. She said, I truly believe words heal. And they do. They absolutely do. And it doesn't even need to be a deep environment like a therapy session. Therapy helps. I strongly recommend it. But even if you don't want to do something as big as that, something as simple as a one-on-one conversation with another person who's a safe space, or another person who has experienced the thing that you've experienced, that alone can get the emotions out. Or, as I mentioned in a previous episode, sometimes talking to an empty bench, talking to an empty chair that is meant to represent the person that hurt you, even that exercise is a game changer in using your words to heal, because the body doesn't care. The person can be in front of you or not. But if you say what you've been holding in, your body will greatly appreciate that and will release the emotions that you've been holding on to for months, perhaps for years, perhaps for a decade or longer. Okay? And the last thing that I want to share that's possible for you when you choose to move forward, when you choose to write your book, when you choose to get your story out into the world and published, is impact. If your question is, what if the book fails? What if nobody listens to me? What if nobody buys the book? Again, that can be resolved in strategizing your messaging. So let's talk about that. Let's get that right before the book is published. And when we do, the impact will be monumental, whether you see it or not. Because the truth is, you might not. Part of the way that you can have an impact on your book is by covering that foundation step that I talked about several episodes ago, in being clear on what you want your book to do, being clear on the purpose of your book. Do you want it to end up in academia? Do you want it in the schools? Do you want it among elementary school kids, among middle school kids, among high school kids? Do you want it to be in colleges? Do you want it to be something collegiate? Being clear on the impact you want your book to have before you write it will determine how you write it and determine the messaging around it. But impact is definitely possible with your book and will happen. I'm going out on a limb and saying it will happen. Even if your book is meant as a legacy piece for your family, maybe it's not meant to go very far. That's okay. Your book will have the impact on your family. And they'll pass it down. They'll pass the story down, whether to their own family, to peripheral members of the family like cousins, aunts, uncles, whatever the case may be. Your impact will be had. Let me share a few examples of what I mean by impact and what that looks like. If you're someone who's an introvert, you're wondering, who will listen to me? What difference will my voice make in the world? Let me show you. This book is called Moving Past Potential, written by Carl Phillips, the Bayesian sensation, if you follow the Secret to Success podcast. Carl is the introvert of the group, okay? If you're familiar with Dr. Eric Thomas or E.T. the Hip Hop Preacher, you're familiar with CJ or Jamal, all of them that are on the podcast. Whether you know it or not, Carl was not only instrumental in putting E.T. out into the world for everyone in the world to see by recording and editing his speeches. Carl, because he studied film in college, learned film from the movie making perspective. And instead of simply cutting together E.T.'s speeches, he cut it together Hollywood style, meaning putting E.T.'s voice with B-roll. You're probably not batting an eyelash when I say that because you're used to it. Here's the truth. This introvert right here, this one that totally underestimates himself all the time, was the man responsible for that entire paradigm on YouTube. Because E.T. and them started on YouTube back in 2006, 2007, back when YouTube was not that big and not taken very seriously. Carl was the one who created the very format of motivational videos with video, with a little bit of B-roll and epic music in the background. That's Carl. You have Carl Phillips to thank for that. And because he wrote this book, Moving Past Potential, he was able to garner a bigger tribe of fellow introverts just like him. People who love to serve and prefer to be behind the scenes, but don't necessarily value their impact. Because he was able to see his impact on E.T., he was able to share his story and his journey and garner himself an entire community of people who can identify with his journey. People who are a few chapters behind him and people who are a few chapters ahead of him that pour into him. And because he's been poured into, Carl is now far more vocal in this year, 2025, as of this recording, than he was when he first started showing up on the podcast many, many years ago now. The podcast has been running for a solid decade at this point, which is insane to believe. But yeah, all it took was for Carl to share his story. And to my point earlier about your voice being different and unique and why your voice is going to matter because your experiences are specific to you, Carl was able to talk about moving past potential, which is a mindset thing, from the perspective of biology. You'd be surprised how he was able to marry those two together. Why did he do that? Because Carl is someone who has a biology degree. He was able to talk about viruses and how viruses behave and parallel that to how we can behave if we have the wrong mindset and stay stuck. It's amazing how he was able to marry those things together. In some of his speeches I've heard, because I've seen him during the 120 virtual conference and on the podcast even, he was able to talk about the whole butterfly, the worm, the caterpillar converting into a butterfly, the struggle that is necessary in the chrysalis, and then that process of flying free and marry that to personal development in a way that was mind blowing. You'll hear Carl all the time say, I don't want to be deep, or I'm not trying to be deep. And dude always is. He literally can't help himself. He's always deep. But that's just one example. And he has sold thousands of copies of his book at this point. The purpose of his book was not necessarily to make the New York Times bestseller list. His goal was to get his book into the hands of as many introverts as possible, particularly people who are in the ETA ecosystem. And he's accomplished that. He has developed an entire coaching community as a result. Here's another example. This book is titled She Walks by Faith. Shout out to the one and only Simone Harris, wife of the great L. David Harris. You guys, if you've been following the show, you've seen my interviews with LDH. Simone formed a community, because that was her purpose, to discuss the effects of perimenopause and menopause in women who have been suffering silently in the process. She is someone who is going through perimenopause herself, and she has been chronicling her process and sharing that with her community. So this book was a part of that. The community began first. She has a Facebook community called Second Spring, the Second Spring community. But the book was part of that. So it's always important to be clear on your book's purpose and what you want your book to do. She does content. She has her community. This book was the next step in the process. And in the book, she now has a specific piece of IP that chronicles her journey and her process and what she's learned. Here's another example. And this one, it didn't make the New York Times bestseller, but it made all of the other lists because this one was traditionally published. Mignon Francois' book, Made from Scratch. The purpose of her book was a promise that she made to God. She said, God, if you help me be successful in this cupcake venture, I will share with whoever is willing to listen what is possible for them if only they believed. This one book has led to not only multiple speaking engagements, this book has put Mignon Francois on the map. And here's what I was talking about in terms of the cost of inaction and certain things you'll miss if you don't publish, certain opportunities that you'll miss. If you hear Mignon tell the story, she says she met E.T. back when he was going to Oakwood Bible College, I believe it is, in Alabama. Now, they go that far back. One of the things E.T. said to her is, I'm gonna need you to write a book. Fast forward a few years later, Mignon goes back to him. She writes this, completes it, and it's published. She goes back to E.T. and she says, Eric, my book is done. He said, let's go, literally. And he took her on the road with him. She is a renowned speaker now as a result of just that one opportunity because of an existing relationship with someone who wanted to help her in the first place. The book was the one thing she was missing. She got that done, and the rest is history. Not only is she speaking, but she's in the process of growing a massive movement of women who are not only women of faith, but women who want to grow in their faith. Mignon is now part of a pop ministry, a Place of Change ministry. That's E.T. the Hip Hop Preacher's Church. She's one of the female speakers. And because of her work with this book, she now ministers to many of the women in that church, because the women in that church shared the need with E.T. We love you. But can we get a woman speaker? Can we hear from a woman in the faith, someone that we can resonate with even more strongly? And ET acknowledged that gap. He was like, you know what? You're absolutely right. Mignon filled the gap. She wrote the book, and ET said, let's go. Now she's filling the gap. So look at that in terms of impact. Not only did she make a connection to someone who is already huge and was able to propel her even further, but in writing the book and amplifying her message, she was able to fill a need. The women in that church said, we need a female voice. We love you, but we need a female voice out here. And ET said, I got one for you. So consider that as it relates to your book, your story. Your voice is meant to resonate with the people that are waiting for you. Your book will succeed because it will reach the people that it needs to reach. Be careful how you define success. Be careful how you define failure. Because here's the truth. Either you win or you learn. Either you win or you learn. If you saw my last episode, I shared with you the cover for my very first book, From a Babe, the devotional. And I shared with you what my mistakes were with that and showed you my author page and showed you the updated version of the cover. One of the things that I also learned in the process of that book is when I first did it, it was strictly the devotional, and that was it. If you got inspired by that book and wanted to take notes, there was nowhere in there to do it. And I got that feedback from a book signing. There were folks at the church that were supporting me, and they said, you know what, Melissa, like this book is really cool, but I don't see a place for me to take notes. Which then led me to create the Bible study workbook to go with it. And after I did the Bible study at my church, I got inspired to consolidate the two. So if you go to my Amazon page and you see From a Babe 2.0 and look through that ebook, there are places in there with the questions from the Bible study workbook. So you can write all the notes you want and answer those deeper questions. You learn as you go. You either win or you learn. Okay? Now, if you're wanting to have impact yourself, if you're hearing this and you're finally inspired, this has finally resonated with you, you're like, you know what, I'm super busy, I'm super exhausted because I'm already losing sleep. Here's the thing, you're probably losing sleep. One of the factors could be that your message isn't out yet. And you're somebody that's saying, you know what, Melissa, I want out. Like, I want this thing out of me so I can finally feel better. I want this book out of me so I can finally heal my body, get the tension out of my body. I want to get this book out of me to have the impact that I want it to have. If that's you, I'm happy to announce for you that I do have my 4-week book boot camp happening in September, called the Truth to Transformation Book Boot Camp. If that's something you're interested in, I do have a wait list. So go to that link below and sign up for the book boot camp. Sign up to join the wait list. And then you'll start getting the emails with the important information as the date draws near. Let's get this book out of you. Let's get your story out into the world and into the hands of the people who desperately need it. Let us not perpetuate the cycle and the silence regarding the trauma or the transition that you've gone through, the transformation that you've gone through. Let us amplify that message as much as possible, because we need as many positive messages out in the world as we can get at this point. As of this recording, the whole world is groaning. It needs what you know. It needs what I know, which is why I continue to do this show. So let me walk you through the process. In 30 minutes a day, over the course of a month, we will get you to self-publish ready. That is the result I can promise you with this book boot camp. Not only will I demystify the process for you and simplify it, it takes that minimal amount of time, 30 minutes a day, and you'll be able to sharpen the messaging behind your book, get clear on the purpose for your book so that you're not flailing in the water, starting and stopping. I'll help you map out the subject matter in your book, help you streamline an outline that you can go by as your voice recording to get your book done that much faster, or typing it out if you prefer to type. I will save you time. I will simplify the process so it's not as complicated. Then I will show you a cost-effective way to get your book to self-publish ready in 30 days. If you're interested and that's you, go to bootcamp.melissathomas.co/sign up and join the wait list so we can get your book out into the world. And as a quick reminder, honor yourself so that you can honor your assignment. The cost of inaction is far too great for you to be paying it anymore. The lack of sleep, anxiety, stress, depression, loneliness, the guilt of not completing the promise that you made to yourself or to other people if you shared your desire to write a book with anybody. The cost of inaction is far too great for you to still be paying it. Your family needs that better version of you that will come from the healing of writing your book. You deserve that better version of you that will come from healing as a result of writing your book. Honor yourself so that you can honor your assignment. Go to that link below and sign up for the wait list so we can get your book out into the world. But as you can see across the bottom, be sure to follow me if you haven't yet. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube. Follow me there. Make sure you subscribe and follow me on Spotify as well, the Getting the Win Show over there. And of course, as you can see across the bottom, at Getting the Win Show on Instagram, Pinterest, and Threads. And if you're on Instagram, you want to join my community, follow me there first, at Getting the Win Show, then DM me with the word community. And I'll make sure to send you the link to our Goal Getter community. Or when you sign up for the book boot camp, you will join the wait list and you'll get the link for our community so you can join from there. All right. In the meantime and between time, thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to tune in next Wednesday for another episode of the Getting the Win Show. In the meantime and between time, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you for always rocking with me. Have a great and productive rest of your Wednesday and a great and productive rest of your week. Peace.